Joining us now to answer that question is David Selig, a federal tax practitioner with Selig and Associates in New York City. Also with us, Morgan Thompson here on the anchor desk. David, Morgan, it's great to have you both with us. David, let's start with you here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with you.
Sure.
And I want to talk a little bit about this issue here. The president's comments, not necessarily the case, is it?
No, it's absolutely false. Right now, there has been a very big buildup at the Internal Revenue Service to issue taxpayer identification numbers, largely to illegal immigrants. Now, these individuals are going to be able to file tax returns this year, and because of Section 152 of the Internal Revenue Code, they can deduct dependents that have never even stepped foot in the United States. In other words, they can deduct dependents that live in Mexico. Each one of those dependents gives them an exemption of $3,950. But what's so insidious about it, it allows these individuals to collect, claim, and receive the Earned Income Credit, which is a refundable credit. It means you get back more than you pay into the system, considerably more in this case. Average claimant will be receiving approximately $6,400 courtesy of the federal government.
Now, David, how is this possible? How can you receive credits for more than you even paid in? And how can you get credits for people that don't even live in this country?
That's a great question, and I'll give you a very simple answer. What we did is we created what's called a refundable credit. It is a euphemism for welfare or public assistance. People receive something, redistribution of wealth, if you will. Now, Section 152 of the Internal Revenue Code allows people to deduct dependents in the two contiguous nations, Mexico and Canada. The rules in Canada are very stringent. Just like if you tried to claim a dependent here, you would have to prove that dependent actually exists. Whereas claiming a Mexican dependent, it's fast and loose. You're on your honor system. And the reason why is they say they don't have the structure that we have here. Many births are actually recorded in a church registry, and there's a lot of rural areas, so we're giving these people a pass.
And David, you say, and you also say that the tax practitioners in a lot of these communities where a lot of illegal immigrants live, they know about this loophole, specifically dealing with Mexico. So they have folks coming in, claiming up to 5 dependents who they may or may not have talked to in years, and getting a lot of money back from the federal government. How much money are we talking about one illegal immigrant can possibly receive in their tax refund check?
Well, on average, they're looking at $6,400 strictly from the federal government. However, many states have matching or partially matching fees. So it's not uncommon for an individual who just makes up these dependents to get back $11,000, $12,000 courtesy of the American taxpayer. And as for these practitioners knowing about it, they certainly do. You will see, and your viewing audience will notice, there are an awful lot of tax return preparation offices in areas with high illegal immigrant populations. It's a cottage industry. Come April 15th, this chicanery that the president is pushing on us is going to cost the American taxpayer an additional $18 billion.
That is a staggering number.
Yes, sir.
David, we'll be back. We got another segment. We're going to talk about this also and about tax benefits and Obamacare that illegal immigrants might be receiving. We'll be right back. And so will David Selig, a tax practitioner based in New York City. But let's talk a little bit more about Obamacare. A piece written recently by Byron York in the Washington Examiner. And York takes us back to President Obama's 2009 State of the Union speech. Do you remember this?
There are also those who claim that our reform efforts would ensure illegal immigrants. This, too, is false. The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally.
Indeed. Well, back to that York piece. Remember that from 2009? Wilson's action, and I'm reading from the York article here. Wilson's actions was inexcusable. His action was inexcusable, but the suspicions behind it were understandable. On November 11th, Health and Human Services Secretary of this year, Sylvia Matthews Burwell, participated in an online chat with a group of Latino bloggers. And again, I'm reading here from this York article. Burwell was asked if Dreamers would be eligible for Obamacare subsidies and then so-called mixed families, for example, a family with illegal parents and, say, legal children. Would they receive benefits? Burwell said no to the Dreamers, but she also stressed that no one in the government will ask applicants if they are here legally or not. Everyone should come on and folks should not be scared, Burwell said. No questions will be asked, and it's not about an immigration issue. Now, York goes on to write, it's not exactly clear how far-reaching the effects of Obama's immigration edict will be, but there's no doubt it has increased the already high level of mistrust between the president and Republicans on Capitol Hill. Now, David, let me ask you this. If they're not going to ask any questions about a person's immigration status, how can they say illegal immigrants are not eligible?
Well, that's a perfect example of saying one thing and doing another. And it also goes right back to the IRS and filing a taxpayer identification number. You know, your viewers are going to notice that this year they're going to have to respond that do they have health insurance? Did they have it throughout the year? And these individuals, Dreamers, illegal immigrants, and otherwise, are going to be answering those as well. A lot of people are, I'm tempted to say slipping through the net, but the reality is there is no net. The American public has been hoodwinked, and this is extraordinarily expensive. And this is the last thing I would say on that. We did not elect this man to be the president of illegal immigrants. We elected him to represent all Americans,
and David,
not just celebrities. Yes, sir.
We got about 10 seconds left. Just give us that number one more time. We got cut off before. How much additional money are we going to have to pay out this year, the taxpayers, for these illegal immigrants?
Well, come April 15th, we are going to pay out in excess of $18 billion just from the earned income credit.
$18 just from the earned income credit. Hard to believe. Well, we're going to say goodbye. David, thanks for being with us. We're going to turn our attention to an American moment known as Operation Nickel Glass, Nixon and Israel, right here.
On October 6, 1973, while the nation of Israel observed Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year for Jews, the combined military forces of Egypt and Syria launched a simultaneous and surprise attack on Israel's southern and northern borders. Within days, the Israeli army found itself in retreat, losing a third of its equipment and outnumbered by the enemy 3-1.
He could not believe. He said, we cannot stop them.
Recognizing their very existence was at stake, President Nixon moved quickly to resupply our ally Israel and their besieged army. With an around-the-clock airlift of U.S. military support, the tide of battle shifted, and soon the Israeli armies were advancing into both Syria and Egypt, with Israeli General Ariel Sharon's tanks threatening Egypt's Third Army with annihilation. The Soviet Union, who were supporting the Arab armies, quickly called upon President Nixon to stop the Israelis' advance or risk a larger war. The president intervened, saved the Egyptian army, and then used the opportunity to convince Egypt's President Anwar Sadat to seek a peaceful solution to a conflict that had plagued the region for decades. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.